She did not see the first fist coming. One moment, Ndiya was reaching for the store phone. The next, her head hit the edge of the register, hard enough to make the coins inside rattle. Fingers closed in her hair and yanked. Her feet slipped on something wet on the floor. Her knees hit the mat behind the counter. Laughter followed, loud and bright. The sound people use when they think nothing in the world can touch them. "Look at her," the tall one said, still reaching for the phone. "Isn't that cute?" His name was Kester, and in his world, that name was a shield. His father's name was the armor. He twisted a handful of her braids tighter, pulling her head back so she had to look at him. His friends, Lorne and Davi, circled like dogs that had tasted blood for the first time and liked it. A half hour earlier, they were just 3 boys in expensive shirts. Now, they were something else. Something mean. Something that had never heard the word no and believed it never would. On the sticky floor behind the counter, Ndiya tried to pull her hair free. Her hands shook so much she could not find his wrist. She could feel the cold air on her stomach where her uniform shirt was torn open, buttons scattered like teeth across the tile. "Please," she said, but the word came out thin, strangled. "Let go." Kester laughed in her face. His breath smelled like whiskey and peppermint gum. "Let go," he repeated, as if it were a joke. "You had your chance to be nice, cashier girl. Now you learn how this town works." He jerked her forward by the hair, then shoved her back against the drawers. Paper receipts, coins, and a few crumpled bills fluttered down around her like ugly confetti. Lorne pointed his phone at her, the little red recording light glowing like an eye. He held it close, too close, until the lens almost touched her cheek. "Smile," Lorne shouted. "Everybody say hi to the internet. This is Ndiya. She hates customers. She hates fun. She hates freedom." Davi howled at his own joke and slapped the counter. Across the store, near the darkened seating area and the restrooms, something heavy shifted. A chair leg scraped. A boot heel tapped twice. None of the boys heard it. They were too busy watching their own show on the tiny screen. Ndiya's fingers slipped on the torn fabric of her shirt as she tried to pull it closed. Purple grape soda dripped from her hair onto her collar, cold at first, then sticky and warm. It ran in thin lines down her back, under her bra strap, into the waistband of her work pants. "Look at that," Davi shouted. "Matches the uniform. They should pay us for this." Kester let go of her hair with one hand and reached for a fresh can from the rack beside the register. He popped the tab. The hiss of gas escaping cut through the stale air of the empty store. "You look too clean anyway," he said. He turned the can over above her head, slow and steady. The cold liquid poured down her face, into her eyes, into her mouth when she gasped. She coughed, choked, spit it out, and the boys laughed harder. For a moment, the whole world was purple in laughter. Then something inside her snapped. Her hand moved on its own. She pushed him. It was not hard, not a trained move, not something from a movie. It was a clumsy shove from a girl who had been holding herself together for too long. Kester's boot slipped in the puddle of soda. He took half a step back. The look on his face changed. Surprise, then anger, then something darker. "You touched me," he said very softly. His right hand came up in a blur. The slap echoed against the glass windows, sharp and cruel. Ndiya's head snapped to the side. Her cheek burned. Her ears rang. She tasted blood. She slid down the drawers until she was sitting on the mat, knees pulled up, one arm across her chest, the other pressed to her face. Her breath came in jerks. She hated the sound of it. It sounded like begging. "Now we're done playing," Kester said. He grabbed the front of her shirt again and yanked. The last threads gave way. The fabric tore with a sound that made her stomach twist. Her work shirt, the only one she owned, hung in ragged pieces. Her plain white undershirt clung to her skin, almost see-through from the soda. Lorne's camera moved closer. "Too close." "That's enough," a voice said from the back of the store. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Kester froze, hands still twisted in the ruined cloth. The 3 boys turned together, like they shared one nervous system. In the dark corner by the vending machines, 3 men stood up. Heavy leather creaked. Boot soles thudded on tile. Patches on black vests caught what little light the store still had. Gray beards, lined faces, hard eyes. They had been there the whole time, sitting in the shadows, watching, listening. Kester squinted. "Are you serious?" he scoffed. "Is this a joke? 3 old bikers? Halloween's over, Grandpa." The big one in the middle did not answer. He only looked at the torn shirt, the purple stains, the red mark on Ndiya's cheek. Then he looked at Kester, and his eyes changed. If you believe people like Kester should never walk away smiling after this, hit subscribe right now. People who stand with him never will. The big man stepped forward. His name was Pharaoh, and the last time he had been in this store, he had been the one shaking. That night, Ndiya had pushed a jug of water into his hands and said, "No charge," like it was nothing. He had not forgotten. Weeks before the grape soda and the torn shirt, Pharaoh had pushed his dead bike along the side of the highway, one slow yard at a time. The sun had been high and hot then. Cars flew past, air conditioners humming. Some drivers turned their heads to look at the tall man in the leather vest sweating on the shoulder. Then they turned their heads back and pressed the gas. By the time he reached the little fuel stop, his shirt under the vest was soaked. His hands shook when he took off his helmet. His old knees hurt. His throat felt like dry sand. He stood by the pump for a full minute. No one came out. Through the glass, he saw a thin girl behind the counter, head bent over a book, lips moving as she read. Her name tag caught the light. He could not quite read it from where he stood. He almost turned around. Men like him had been turned away from places like this too many times. Then the glass door slid open. "You okay?" the girl asked. Her voice was soft but clear. Simple English. No fear. He blinked at her. Up close, she was younger than he first thought. Maybe 18. Maybe 19. Dark eyes, tired but steady. Her uniform was clean and pressed. Her badge read Ndiya in small black letters. "Bike overheated," Pharaoh muttered. "Water's gone. I'll pay." He reached for his wallet with clumsy fingers. She shook her head. "Bathroom's open," she said. "Sink inside. I'll get you a jug. Sit for a minute." He stared at her. People did not talk to him like that. Not here. Not in this county. Inside, she moved fast and efficient. Jug from under the sink. Cheap paper cup filled with stale coffee from the machine. She wiped a chair off with a rag before he even got his gloves off. He sat. The chair groaned under his weight. She set the coffee down in front of him. The smell hit his nose. Burned, old, overcooked. It was still the best thing he had smelled all day. "How much?" he asked. She smiled, "Just a little." "It's the old pot," she said. "Boss says toss it at midnight. You're saving me the walk." He chuckled, a short, rough sound, surprised at his own humor. "You got a name, girl?" he asked. "Ndiya," she said. "Means, I am going, my grandma says it fits." Pharaoh wrapped his big hands around the tiny cup. Steam rose between the tattoos on his knuckles. He looked at her standing there in that thin uniform, alone in the late-night store, working while the world slept. "You here all night?" he asked. "Most nights," she said. "Somebody's got to pay for night classes." She said it like it was simple math. Work, save, study, move on. He nodded. He looked around. Security cameras. A phone on the counter. The highway outside, dark and empty. "Gets rough?" he asked, eyes scanning the windows. "Sometimes," she said. "But I got rules. I follow them. Rules protect you." She believed that. He could hear it. It made his chest hurt, just a little. Pharaoh finished the coffee in 2 gulps. It burned going down. It felt good. He stood up, joints complaining. He picked up the jug of water she had set by the door. "How much for the water?" he asked again. She rolled her eyes. "Sir," she said, "if I charge you for tap water, my grandma will come down here and fight me." He laughed, louder this time. The sound echoed between the aisles. At the door, he paused. "Thank you, Ndiya," he said. He made sure to say her name right. Not everybody opens the door when they see this vest. He tapped the leather on his chest. The patch there meant trouble to most people. To him, it meant brothers, roads, bars, fights, mistakes, and 1,000 miles of stories. She looked at the vest, then at his face. "Everybody overheats sometimes," she said. "Have a good ride." He pushed the door open. The bell above it chimed. As it closed behind him, she went back to her book, to her jar under the counter with the hand-lettered label, Night Classes Fund. Inside the jar, wrinkled 1s and 5s leaned against each other like tired workers. On that night, Pharaoh left with his radiator full and his pride a little less heavy. On the night of the assault, he came back with 24 brothers. Now, standing in the half-lit store, Pharaoh stepped between Kester and the girl who had once given him coffee for free. He did not shout. He did not puff his chest. His voice was low and flat when he spoke. "Let go of her shirt," he said. Kester snorted. "Or what?" he asked. You and your grandpa club gonna file a complaint? Pharaoh did not answer right away. He reached up, slowly, and rested one big hand on the edge of the counter. The tattoos on his fingers were old and faded, but the strength under the skin was not. You hit a woman in front of me, Pharaoh said. Where I come from. That makes you a coward. Something in the way he said the word made Lorne lower his phone half an inch. You don't know who my father is, Kester spat. You don't know what you're doing. Pharaoh's eyes did not move from Kester's face. I know what she did, he said. She opened a door when everybody else kept theirs shut. He reached up with both hands and began to unbutton his leather vest. To a man like Pharaoh, that vest was not just clothing. It was a flag, a life, a record of every mile and every fight. He slid it off his shoulders and held it out. Stand up, girl, he said. Ndiya's legs shook when she tried, but they held. He draped the heavy leather over her shoulders. It covered the torn shirt. It covered the purple stains. It smelled like smoke, oil, and long roads. She pulled it closed with both hands, fingers digging into the worn edges. If you think small kindness should be repaid big, the narrator's voice said, slow and firm. Hit like and comment stand with Ndiya. People like Kester are counting on you to stay quiet. Behind Pharaoh, boots moved in the aisles. The shadows at the back of the store thickened and then separated into shapes. Leather, denim, patches. There were not 3 old men in that store. There were 25 Hell's Angels. And for the first time that night, Kester's smile slipped. Kester took one step back. It was a small step, barely a shuffle, but everyone in that store felt it. The sound of 25 heavy boots on tile was not loud. It did not need to be. It was the sound of a decision already made. They filled the narrow aisles between the candy racks and the chip shelves. They lined up against the cold drink coolers, arms crossed, faces blank. They blocked the path to the front door, the path to the restrooms, the path to anywhere Kester might want to run. Lorne's phone slipped from his hand. It hit the floor with a crack. The screen went dark. Davi pressed his back against the cigarette display, his mouth open, breathing fast through his nose like a rabbit. Kester looked from face to face, searching for weakness. He found none. Pharaoh stood in front of Ndiya like a wall made of muscle and old scars. His arms hung loose at his sides, but his fists were ready. You don't want to do this, Kester said. His voice cracked on the last word. He cleared his throat and tried again. You know who my father is? Don't care, Pharaoh said. He's a judge, Kester snapped. Judge Halden. He runs 3 counties. He puts people like you in cages for breathing wrong. Pharaoh's face did not change. Then he'll have a lot to talk about at breakfast, Pharaoh said. One of the bikers near the chip aisle, a thin man with a gray ponytail and a face like old boot leather, stepped forward. His name was Bran. He moved slow, hands visible, like he was approaching a scared animal. Boy, Bran said quietly, you tore that girl's clothes. You hit her. You filmed it. That's 3 felonies in my count. Kester's jaw tightened. She touched me first, he said. That's assault. I was defending myself. Bran's lip curled. Defending yourself, he repeated. From a 100-pound girl behind a counter. Another biker, thick as a tree trunk with a shaved head and forearms covered in faded ink, let out a low whistle. His patch said his road name was Olo. Kid thinks we're stupid, Olo muttered. Kid thinks cameras only point one way. He nodded toward the corner of the ceiling. A small black security camera blinked its red light, patient and silent. Kester's eyes flicked up. His face went pale. That footage is store property, he said quickly. My dad can have it seized. You can't touch it. Pharaoh tilted his head. Maybe, he said. But your friend already uploaded his video. That one's not in the store anymore. That one's in the cloud. Isn't that what you kids call it? Kester turned to Lorne, who was still frozen by the candy aisle. Delete it, Kester hissed. Lorne bent down and picked up his cracked phone with shaking hands. He tapped the screen. Nothing happened. He tapped it again. It's broken, Lorne whispered. Then use Davi's phone. Kester barked. Davi pulled his phone from his pocket, hands fumbling. Before he could unlock it, a heavy hand clamped down on his wrist. It belonged to a biker with a thick gray beard and a scar cutting through his eyebrow. His road name was Moss. He did not squeeze. He just held. I wouldn't do that, Moss said softly. Davi dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor between his feet. Kester spun around, searching for an exit, for a weapon, for anything. His hand brushed the edge of the counter. He grabbed the store phone. It was still connected. The cord hung limp from the wall jack. He lifted the receiver to his ear. Pharaoh watched him. Did not move. Did not stop him. Kester's finger hovered over the buttons. Then he froze. Go ahead, Pharaoh said. Call your daddy. Tell him what you did. Tell him you got caught. Kester's hand shook. The receiver slipped. He caught it, pressed it back to his ear, and started dialing. 3 numbers. 9, 1, 1. Pharaoh nodded to Bran. Bran stepped forward and yanked the phone cord out of the wall. The plug popped free. The dial tone died. Kester stared at the dead receiver in his hand. Oops, Bran said. Kester threw the phone at him. Bran caught it one-handed, gently, like it was made of glass, and set it on the counter. Behind the bikers, Ndiya stood wrapped in Pharaoh's vest, arms crossed tight over her chest. She could still taste grape soda and blood. Her cheek throbbed where Kester had hit her. But for the first time since the boys walked in, she could breathe. Let us go, Kester said. His voice was quieter now. Smaller. We'll leave. We won't say anything. Just let us walk out. Pharaoh's eyes narrowed. You think it's that easy? He asked. It was a mistake, Kester said quickly. We were drinking. We got stupid. It won't happen again. You're right, Pharaoh said. It won't. He looked over his shoulder at Ndiya. You want them gone? He asked her. Ndiya looked at the 3 boys. Kester, who had grabbed her hair. Lorne, who had filmed her humiliation. Davi, who had laughed while it happened. She thought about what would happen if they walked out. They would tell their story. Their father's story. The judge's story. She would lose her job. Maybe worse. No, she said, her voice steady. They stay until the police come. Kester's eyes went wide. The police, he repeated. You're calling the cops on us? Ndiya met his gaze. You said your father runs this county, she said. Let's see if he runs the law too. Pharaoh pulled his own phone from his pocket. It was old, scratched, held together with electrical tape. He unlocked it with his thumb. Before he could dial, Kester's phone buzzed. It was still in his jacket pocket. The vibration was loud in the silent store. Kester reached for it slowly, like it might explode. He pulled it out. The screen lit up his face. Father calling. Kester stared at the name. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Answer it, Pharaoh said. Kester shook his head. Answer it. Pharaoh repeated, harder this time. Kester swiped the screen. He lifted the phone to his ear. His hand trembled so hard the phone tapped against his skull. Dad, he whispered. The voice on the other end was sharp and clear. Everyone in the store could hear it, clipped and cold. Where are you? Kester swallowed. At the gas station. Route 17. Why are you still there? I told you to finish and get home. Judge Holloway is waiting. Kester's eyes darted to Pharaoh. To the bikers. To Ndiya. There's a problem, he said. Silence on the other end. Then, slow and careful. What kind of problem? Kester opened his mouth. No sound came out. Pharaoh stepped forward and held out his hand. Give me the phone, Pharaoh said. Kester shook his head violently. Pharaoh's voice dropped. Give me the phone. Kester's fingers went limp. Pharaoh took the phone from his hand. He raised it to his ear. He did not speak. He just listened. Kester, the voice said. Who is this? Pharaoh's jaw tightened. He looked at the phone screen. At the name. At the number saved under Father. Then he looked at Kester, and understanding settled over his face like frost. Halden, Pharaoh said quietly. On the other end of the line, the voice went silent. Then it came back, colder than before. Who am I speaking to? Pharaoh did not answer. He just pressed the red button and ended the call. The phone buzzed again immediately. Pharaoh silenced it and slipped it into his vest pocket. Kester lunged forward. That's mine, he shouted. Give it back. 2 bikers grabbed him by the arms and held him still. He kicked and twisted, but they did not let go. Pharaoh turned to the group. We got a choice to make, he said. That man on the phone? Judge Halden. Every biker in this state knows his name. He's the one who put my uncle away for 20 years on a trumped-up charge. He's the one who looked the other way when cops beat my cousin in a cell. He glanced at Ndiya. And now his son just committed 3 felonies in front of witnesses. The room was silent. Then Moss spoke up from the back. We leave now. We're across state lines in 2 hours, he said. No one has to know we were here. Bran shook his head. We leave. The girl's done, he said. Judge will bury her. Make her the villain. She'll be in a cell by sunrise. All eyes turned to Ndiya. She stood there, soaked in soda, shirt torn, face swollen. But her eyes were clear. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Pharaoh nodded. Then neither are we, he said. If you can't stand men like Kester getting away with this, comment "no more lies" and hit subscribe. Silence is what people like his father count on. Kester stopped struggling. His face went white. You're making a mistake, he whispered. When my father gets here, you're all dead. Pharaoh looked at him for a long moment. Then he turned to the bikers. Lock the doors, he said. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home was louder than it should have been. It echoed through the aisles like the final note of a song nobody wanted to hear. Lauren watched the lock turn and felt something cold settle in his stomach. Davi started breathing faster. Short, shallow gulps. His hands opened and closed at his sides. Kester stood frozen between two bikers, staring at the locked door like it was the entrance to a grave. Outside, the highway stretched black and empty. No headlights. No help. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered. The air smelled like spilled soda, sweat, and old leather. Pharaoh walked to the front windows and looked out at the dark. His reflection stared back at him, hard-eyed and older than he remembered. Moss, he said without turning around. Flip the sign. Moss moved to the door and turned the plastic sign from open to closed. The red letters faced outward now, bright against the glass. Brand, Olo, Pharaoh continued. Start moving shelves. I want barriers on every window. The two bikers nodded and got to work. They grabbed the nearest metal shelf, a tall unit stacked with motor oil and windshield fluid, and dragged it toward the glass. The legs screeched against the tile. Bottles rattled and tipped. One by one, the other bikers joined in. They moved with the quiet efficiency of men who had done harder things in worse places. Chip racks, soda displays, the ice cream freezer. All of it got shoved against the windows, creating a wall of junk food and cold drinks between them and the world outside. Ndiya watched from behind the counter, still clutching Pharaoh's vest around her shoulders. The heavy leather smelled like gasoline and rain. It was too big, drowning her small frame, but it was warm. Safe. Kester tried to pull free from the hands holding him. You can't do this, he said. His voice climbed higher. This is kidnapping. This is illegal detention. My father will. Your father, Pharaoh interrupted, turning to face him, is the reason we're still here. He walked over slowly, boots thudding against the sticky floor. You think we don't know who Judge Halden is? Pharaoh asked. You think we forgot? Kester's mouth opened. Closed. My uncle, Pharaoh said, his voice low and sharp, got pulled over for a broken taillight. Cop found a bag of powder in the back seat. My uncle swore it wasn't his. Swore somebody planted it. Your father didn't care. Gave him 20 years. He stepped closer. My cousin got beat so bad in County Lookup, he lost hearing in one ear. Guard said he slipped. Video cameras were broken that night. Funny how that works. Your father was district attorney then. He buried the case. Kester shook his head. That's not. I don't know about that. That's not me. No, Pharaoh agreed. But you're his son. And tonight, you did what he taught you. You thought you could hurt somebody weaker and walk away clean. Kester's face twisted. She's nobody, he spat. She's just a cashier. The slap came fast. Not from Pharaoh. From Ndiya. She had moved without thinking, crossing the small space behind the counter in 2 steps. Her palm connected with Kester's cheek, hard and sharp. The sound cracked through the store. Kester's head snapped to the side. He stared at her, eyes wide, hand rising to his face. Ndiya's chest heaved. Her hand stung. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but she did not look away. My name is Ndiya, she said, her voice shaking but firm. Not nobody. Not Cashier. Ndiya. Pharaoh stepped between them before Kester could respond. He looked at Ndiya, then nodded once, slow and respectful. Understood, he said. He turned back to Kester. Take him to the back, Pharaoh ordered. Him and his friends. Stockroom. Tie their hands. Don't hurt them unless they try something stupid. Moss and another biker, a man with a thick neck and knuckles like stones, grabbed Kester by the arms and marched him toward the back hallway. Lauren and Davi were pushed along behind him. Wait, Kester shouted, twisting in their grip. Wait, you can't. The stockroom door opened. They shoved him through. The door slammed shut. The sound of something heavy being dragged in front of it followed. Then silence. Ndiya stood alone behind the counter, breathing hard, staring at the closed door. Pharaoh walked over to her. He leaned against the counter, his big frame relaxed, his eyes tired. You okay? He asked. She nodded, then shook her head, then nodded again. I don't know, she admitted. Pharaoh smiled just a little. That's honest, he said. He looked around the store. At the blocked windows. At the bikers moving in the aisles, checking sight lines, testing the locks. At the mess of spilled drinks and torn packages scattered across the floor. This is going to get worse before it gets better, Pharaoh said quietly. Ndiya looked at him. Why are you doing this? She asked. You could leave. Right now? Just go. You don't owe me anything. Pharaoh was quiet for a moment. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, battered coin. It was old, edges worn smooth. He turned it over in his fingers. 3 years ago, he said, I was coming back from my brother's funeral. Rode 2 days straight, no sleep. Bike started coughing outside of town. Pulled into a gas station just like this one. He glanced at her. I looked rough. Hadn't shaved. Vest was covered in road dust. Woman behind the counter took one look at me and locked the door. Wouldn't even let me use the bathroom. Told me to move along. He slipped the coin back into his pocket. 2 miles down the road, engine seized. I walked the rest of the way in 100-degree heat. Nobody stopped. Plenty of cars. Nobody stopped. Ndiya's throat tightened. But you stopped, Pharaoh continued. You opened the door. You gave me water. Coffee. Didn't ask for a dime. Didn't look at me like I was dirt. He met her eyes. People like you are rare, he said. When we find one, we remember. Ndiya's vision blurred. She blinked hard and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I just did what my grandma taught me, she said. Then your grandma raised you right, Pharaoh said. He straightened up and looked toward the front windows. Through the gaps in the barricade, he could see the highway. Still empty. Still dark. But not for long. Pharaoh's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. Unknown number. He answered. Yeah. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. This is Judge Halden. I believe you have my son. Pharaoh said nothing. I'm going to give you one chance, the judge continued. Let him go. Walk away. I'll forget this happened. Pharaoh's jaw tightened. And the girl? He asked. Silence. Then, the girl assaulted my son. That's a felony. She'll be dealt with appropriately. Pharaoh's grip on the phone tightened until the plastic creaked. Your son tore her clothes, Pharaoh said, his voice low and hard. He hit her. He filmed it. We've got the video. We've got witnesses. Another pause. You're making a very serious mistake, the judge said. I have resources you can't imagine. I will bury you. Pharaoh looked at Ndiya. At the purple stains on her uniform. At the red mark on her cheek. You can try, Pharaoh said. He ended the call. The phone buzzed again immediately. He silenced it and tossed it onto the counter. Bran walked over, wiping his hands on his jeans. Barriers are up, he said. Back doors secured. We're locked in tight. Pharaoh nodded. Good. Now we wait. Bran frowned. Wait for what? Pharaoh looked out at the highway. In the distance, barely visible against the black, a faint glow appeared. Blue. Red. Flashing. For him, Pharaoh said. The sirens started low. A distant wail carried on the wind. Then they grew louder. Closer. The bikers around the store stopped moving. They turned toward the windows. Toward the sound. Ndiya's hands tightened on the edge of the counter. They're coming, she whispered. Pharaoh nodded. Yeah, he said. They are. The lights grew brighter, painting the inside of the store in flickering red and blue. The sirens became a scream. Then, one by one, the police cars pulled into the parking lot. Doors opened. Boots hit pavement. Voices crackled over radios. And in the center of it all, stepping out of a black sedan with polished shoes and a pressed suit, was Judge Halden. He looked at the barricaded store, at the closed sign, at the shadows moving inside. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. Pharaoh watched him through the glass. He turned to the bikers. Nobody moves, he said. Nobody talks. We hold this line. The bikers nodded. Outside, Judge Halden raised a megaphone to his lips. This is your last warning. His voice boomed across the parking lot. Release my son and surrender, or I will have every one of you arrested for kidnapping, assault, and domestic terrorism. Inside the store, Ndiya looked at Pharaoh. What do we do? She asked. Pharaoh reached over and gently adjusted the vest on her shoulders, making sure it covered her torn shirt. We tell the truth, he said. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and stepped outside into the flashing lights. The megaphone lowered. Judge Halden stared at him. Pharaoh stared back. And the real fight began. The night air hit Pharaoh like a slap. After the bright, humming store, the parking lot felt wide and sharp. Red and blue lights washed over everything, turning cars and concrete into a spinning carousel of color. Police cruisers formed a half-circle around the front of the station. Doors hung open. Engines idled. Officers stood behind their open doors, hands near holsters, eyes on the man in the doorway. Pharaoh stepped out slowly. Empty hands, palms open. Behind the glass, the bikers stayed where they were, shadows and leather. Ndiya watched from just behind the counter, Pharaoh's vest still wrapped around her like a cloak. Judge Halden stood in the center of the lot, flanked by two senior officers. His suit was dark, his tie neat, his gray hair carefully combed. He looked like a man who had never rushed for anyone in his life. "You," Halden said, lowering the megaphone. "Step forward." Pharaoh walked down the short stretch of concrete until he was halfway between the door and the closest cruiser. He stopped there. "No closer." "Is my son inside?" Halden asked. "Yes," Pharaoh said. "Is he alive?" "Yes." "Then here is how this works," Halden said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "You will bring him out. You will bring his friends out. You will all lie down on the pavement with your hands behind your heads. You will not speak unless spoken to. If you comply, some of you may see daylight again." Pharaoh tilted his head, studying the judge's face. "You forgot a part," Pharaoh said. Halden's eyes narrowed. "What part?" "The girl," Pharaoh said. "You left her out." Halden shrugged. "The clerk assaulted my son," he said. "She will be detained. She will have her day in court." Pharaoh smiled without humor. "Like my uncle did?" he asked. "Like my cousin did? Like every man in a leather vest who ever stood in front of your bench?" Halden's jaw tightened. "You are criminals," he said. "This is not about your uncle. This is about tonight." "Tonight is about her," Pharaoh said. "Your boy tore her clothes off her body. He poured soda on her, hit her, mocked her, filmed her, locked the doors so she couldn't get away. That's not assault. That's a hunt." One of the younger officers near a cruiser shifted his weight. His eyes flicked from Pharaoh to the judge. He looked like he wanted to speak, but he didn't. "If you have evidence," Halden said slowly, "we will review it in court, after you are in custody." Pharaoh lifted his hand and tapped his chest where his inside pocket sat. "We have plenty," he said. "Lorne's video, store camera, audio from your call. Enough to make a very long, very ugly news story." Halden's face stayed calm. Too calm. His eyes, though, went colder. "You think anyone will believe a gang of Hell's Angels over a judge?" he asked. "Over a decorated officer of the court?" Pharaoh chuckled. "Not on your word," he said. "But on your son's? With his voice on camera? With his face in frame? With a girl standing there in a torn shirt, covered in grape soda, shaking?" Halden flicked a glance at the store windows. For a second, he saw her, small, dark-haired, bruised, wrapped in outlaw leather. That image would not play well on the evening news. "You're bluffing," Halden said. "No," Pharaoh said. "I'm bargaining." He took a slow breath. "Here's our offer," Pharaoh said. "We keep the doors closed until we talk terms. Nobody inside gets hurt. Nobody outside fires a shot. You walk away from this without a riot, without a body count, and without a scandal that eats your career alive." One of the older officers, a man with a heavy belly and tired eyes, stepped close to Halden's side. "Judge," he murmured, low enough that only a few could hear, "maybe we should." Halden cut him off with a sharp look. "Chief," Pharaoh said, raising his voice just enough, "how many years you got on that badge?" The older officer blinked. 28, he said. "How many times you watched kids like him?" Pharaoh nodded toward the store. "Walk away smiling while girls like her walked out in cuffs." The chief's eyes flicked to Halden, then to Pharaoh, then to the ground. "Enough," the chief said quietly. Halden's head snapped toward him. "What did you say?" Halden asked. The chief straightened his shoulders. His hands settled more firmly on his belt, nowhere near his gun. "I said enough," the chief repeated. "Judge, we got body cams rolling. Every car here has dash recording. We storm that store, someone gets hurt on video. Someone bleeds on video. Might be a biker. Might be your boy. Might be that girl. That's not going away." Halden stared at him for a long moment. The parking lot held its breath. Then Halden smiled again. "Small. Tight. Fine," he said. "We do it your way. For now." He lifted the megaphone again. "Biker," he called, voice booming. "You want to talk terms? Then you come back inside. Lock the doors. I will approach." We will discuss this like adults. Pharaoh hesitated. It felt like stepping into a trap. Then he thought of Ndiya alone behind the counter, shaking but standing. He nodded once. He turned his back on the judge. It was a small thing. It was also the most disrespectful thing he could have done to a man like Halden. If you believe men like Judge Halden should not own every ending, hit subscribe and comment, stand for justice. People like him count on you looking away. Pharaoh walked back to the door and stepped inside. He locked it behind him again. Report, he asked. Brand pointed to the small monitor behind the counter. The store's camera system showed 4 angles: aisles, door, counter, back hall. On one of them, Kester sat on the stockroom floor, hands tied with packing tape, lips split, eyes wild. On another, the parking lot glowed red and blue. Officers. Cars. Judge. He's scared, Brand said, nodding toward Kester. Never had to wait for consequences before. First time for everything, Pharaoh said. He turned to Ndiya. You sure you still want to do this? He asked. Last chance to walk away. Say you fainted. Say you saw nothing. She looked at the screen where Kester's face shook under the fluorescent stockroom light. He said I was nobody, she whispered. He said my life meant nothing next to his father's name. She lifted her chin. I want him to say it to the camera, she said, with the truth next to it. Pharaoh nodded. Then you're not just a clerk tonight, he said. You're our witness. The store felt smaller now. The shelves against the windows made the space tighter. The red and blue flashes creeping through the cracks made the air feel hot and strange. 25 bikers spread out through the aisles, but they were quiet. No one paced. No one shouted. They waited. Pharaoh moved behind the counter with Ndiya. He glanced at the old security system one more time, fingers brushing the buttons to make sure the recording light stayed red. Here's how this goes, he said. We bring him out. We sit him right there. He tapped the floor in front of the counter. We ask him what he did. We ask you what he did. We make sure the camera sees both faces. And then, Ndiya asked. Then we open the door, Pharaoh said. We let the judge see his son's confession. We see what the law does when it has to look itself in the eye. She swallowed. What if they twist it? She asked. What if they say I made it up? That you forced him? Pharaoh smiled, a tired smile. Then you remember something, he said. If you can't stand people like Kester and his father twisting stories, hit like and write no more lies in the comments. Stories like this only reach more folks when people like you push them out. He wasn't talking to her anymore. He was talking to everyone who would ever hear this story. He turned to Bran. Bring him, Pharaoh said. Bran nodded and headed to the back hallway. 2 other bikers went with him. The store fell into a hush broken only by the hum of the fridges and the faint wail of sirens outside. Ndiya adjusted the vest around her shoulders. Her fingers traced the worn stitching of the patch. Death head, wings, letters curved in a shape the town feared. She had spent her life trusting rules and paper signs. Now the only thing between her and a cage was a leather symbol the law called a gang sign. Her stomach turned, but she did not move. The stockroom door opened. Kester stumbled out, wrists taped in front of him, shirt smeared with his own blood and grape soda. His hair was a mess where fingers had grabbed it. His cheek still showed the print of Ndiya's hand. Bran guided him forward with one hand on his shoulder. Sit, Bran said. Kester dropped to the floor in front of the counter. He looked small now, sitting cross-legged on the tile, head tilted up to see over the register. His eyes met Ndiya's. For a moment, something like shame flickered there. Then it hardened into anger. This is illegal, he said. Every second you keep me here is another charge. My father will. Your father is outside, Pharaoh interrupted. He's waiting to hear what happened. So tell him. He pointed at the camera mounted above the door. Talk to that, he said. Not to me. Kester snorted. What? You think I'm going to confess on tape, he asked. You think I'm stupid? Pharaoh shrugged. Maybe, he said. Or maybe you're still drunk enough to think you're untouchable. He looked at Ndiya. You start, he said. Ndiya's throat went dry. Her hands trembled on the edge of the counter. For a moment, the words would not come. Then she thought of the first coin that had hit her cheek, of the sticky soda running down her back, of Kester's voice in her ears saying, Tonight, you belong to us. My name is Ndiya, she said. Her voice sounded small in her own ears, but the microphone above the counter caught it. I work here. Tonight, I was on shift alone. She glanced at Kester, then back at the camera. These 3 came in, she said. They were loud. They broke things. They tried to buy beer. I asked for ID. They threw money at me. When I told them to pick it up, Kester poured soda on me. He tore my shirt. He hit me. His friend filmed it. She stopped. The room waited. You left something out, Pharaoh said gently. What did he say? She took a slow breath. The words tasted like ash. He called me nobody, she said. He said his father owned this town. He said I was nothing. The muscles in Kester's jaw jumped. You left the part out where you assaulted me. Kester snapped. You pushed me. You hit me. Ndiya's eyes flashed. I pushed you after you tore my clothes, she said. After you poured soda on me. After you hit me. After you locked the doors. We locked the doors for safety, Kester said quickly. We were scared. She was angry. She was yelling. You know how people like her get. He stopped himself, but it was too late. The word hung there. People like her. Pharaoh let the silence stretch just long enough. People like her, Pharaoh repeated slowly. Say it for the camera, boy. People like who? Kester swallowed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. I didn't mean, he began. You meant it when you said it to her, Pharaoh said. You meant it when you grabbed her hair. When you told her nobody would believe her. When you said your father owned the cops. Kester's gaze darted to the camera, then back to Pharaoh. This is entrapment, he said. You're trying to make me say things. You already said them, Pharaoh cut in. On your friend's stream. On her store camera. On that phone your father keeps buzzing. The store phone on the counter buzzed again, vibrating in place. Halden's number flashed across the cracked screen. Pharaoh ignored it. Outside, one of the officers shifted his weight and glanced at his own dash monitor, watching the silent black and white feed from the store's front camera. He could see 3 figures at the counter. The girl in leather. The biker. The judge's son on the floor. Chief, one of the younger officers murmured, You seeing this? The chief watched the screen. Watched the judge pace behind the cruisers like a lion behind bars. I see it, the chief said softly. Back inside, Kester's shoulders sagged a little. What do you want, he asked. The fight had gone out of his voice. You want me to say I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. There. You happy? Pharaoh shook his head. Sorry doesn't fix her shirt, he said. Sorry doesn't fix every girl who watched you laugh on camera. Sorry doesn't put your father under the same rules as the people he locks up. He leaned on the counter, eyes never leaving Kester. I want you to say what you did, Pharaoh said. Plain. Simple. No lawyer words. No excuses. And I want you to say your father's name when you say who taught you you'd get away with it. Kester's face twisted. He didn't. Did he ever tell you no? Pharaoh asked. When you hurt someone smaller. When you broke something. When you lied. Kester's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. He said people like me have to show strength, Kester said finally. He said, people like her only understand fear. The bikers in the aisles went still. Ndiya felt something inside her chest crack and then harden. Thank you, Pharaoh said softly. That's the truth. He straightened up and looked at the camera. You got that? He asked the little red light. It blinked, steady. If you believe this kind of truth should not stay hidden, hit subscribe and share this story. Every comment that says, I stand with Ndiya, makes it harder for men like Halden to bury girls like her. Pharaoh turned to Bran. Open the door, he said. It's time the judge saw his son the way we do. Bran nodded. He walked to the front. He reached for the lock. And outside, Judge Halden stepped closer to the glass, ready to take his boy back, or to burn the whole place down trying. The lock clicked. The door swung open slow. Bran stepped aside, one hand resting easy on his belt, the other gesturing outward like a host welcoming a guest. Judge, he said. Come on in. Judge Halden stepped forward. His shoes clicked against the tile, sharp and precise. 2 officers started to follow him. Halden raised one hand without looking back. Wait here, he said. The officers stopped. They did not argue. Halden walked into the store alone. The door swung shut behind him. The lock did not click this time. It stayed open, a thin promise of exit that felt more like bait than safety. Halden looked around slowly. At the shelves pushed against the windows. At the bikers lining the aisles like statues in leather. At the spilled soda and broken candy on the floor. Then his eyes found his son. Kester sat on the tile in front of the counter, wrists taped, face bruised, shirt stained. When he saw his father, something in his expression crumbled. Dad, Kester said. His voice cracked. Dad, they. Halden held up one finger. Kester stopped talking. The judge turned his attention to Pharaoh, who stood behind the counter with his arms crossed. Beside him, Ndiya stood wrapped in the leather vest, her face still marked with purple and red. Halden's gaze lingered on her for a moment. Then he looked at Pharaoh. You wanted to talk, Halden said. So talk. Pharaoh nodded toward the small monitor on the counter. We recorded everything, he said. Your son's testimony. Hers. Security footage. Audio from your phone call. All of it. Halden's face did not change. Testimony obtained under duress is inadmissible, he said calmly. You held him against his will. You tied his hands. Any lawyer worth minimum wage will have it thrown out in 5 minutes. Maybe, Pharaoh said. But the internet doesn't have a judge. And that live stream your boy's friend started? That one's already out there. Already got views. Already got shares. Halden's jaw tightened, just a fraction. Defamation, he said. Slander. I will sue you into the ground. Pharaoh smiled without warmth. You can try, he said. But here's the thing, Judge. You sue me. You make it a bigger story. News picks it up. Reporters start asking questions. Why did a judge's son lock a girl in a gas station? Why did he tear her clothes? Why did 25 bikers have to step in when the law was busy looking the other way? Halden's eyes went cold. Careful, he said softly. No, Pharaoh said. You be careful. He leaned forward, palms flat on the counter. You spent 30 years putting men like me in cages, Pharaoh said. Some deserved it. Some didn't. My uncle didn't. My cousin didn't. But you didn't care because nobody was watching. He tapped the monitor. Tonight, people are watching, he said. And they're going to see what your boy did. They're going to hear him say you taught him he could get away with it. And then they're going to ask what kind of judge raises a kid who thinks tearing a girl's shirt off is just another Tuesday. Halden stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned to Kester. Stand up, Halden said. Kester scrambled to his feet, awkward with his hands taped. He swayed a little, still drunk, still scared. Did you touch this girl? Halden asked. Kester's eyes darted to Ndiya. To Pharaoh. Back to his father. Yes or no, Halden said. Kester swallowed. Yes, he whispered. Did you tear her clothing? Yes. Did you strike her? Kester hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Halden's expression did not change. He looked at his son the way a man might look at a stain on a carpet. Annoyed, calculating how much it would cost to fix. You're an idiot, Halden said flatly. Kester flinched like he had been slapped. Halden turned back to Pharaoh. Here is what happens now, the judge said. My son will apologize. He will pay restitution for any damages. He will leave town and complete a rehabilitation program. In exchange, you will delete the recordings. You will sign non-disclosure agreements. You will leave this county and never return. Pharaoh tilted his head. And her? He asked, nodding toward Ndiya. She keeps her job, Halden said. No charges. Clean record. She walks away whole. It was a good offer. A smart offer. It gave everyone an exit. Pharaoh looked at Ndiya. What do you think? He asked. She stood there, fingers gripping the edges of the vest. Her throat felt tight. Her chest ached. For a moment, she wanted to say yes. Wanted it to be over. Wanted to go home, shower, sleep, forget. But then she thought about the coin that hit her face. About Kester's hand in her hair. About his voice saying, you belong to us. She thought about every girl who would come after her. Every kid in an expensive shirt who would learn tonight that apologies bought silence. No, she said. The room went still. Halden's eyes narrowed. Excuse me, he said. No. Ndiya repeated, louder this time. I don't want his apology. I don't want money. I want charges. Real ones. The kind that go on a record. Halden's face hardened. Young lady, he said, his voice dropping into the tone he used in courtrooms. You do not understand what you are asking for. If this goes to trial, your life will be examined. Your history, your family, every mistake you have ever made will be dragged into the light. Is that what you want? Ndiya met his eyes. If that's what it takes, she said. Halden stared at her. For the first time that night, something like uncertainty flickered across his face. He turned to Pharaoh. You put her up to this, he said. No, Pharaoh said. She did that herself. Halden's mouth pressed into a thin line. Then you are both fools, he said. He stepped closer to the counter, voice dropping low enough that only the three of them could hear. I have been a judge for 30 years, he said. I know every lawyer, every clerk, every bailiff. I know which cases get fast-tracked and which ones disappear into filing cabinets for decades. If you push this, I will make sure it is the longest, ugliest trial this county has ever seen. And when it is over, I will make sure everyone in 3 states knows her name for all the wrong reasons. Ndiya felt the threat settle over her like a weight. But she did not look away. Then they'll know yours too, she said. Holden's jaw clenched. You think you can win against me? He asked. I think, Ndiya said slowly, that if you were sure you could win, you wouldn't be standing here trying to buy my silence. The words hung in the air. Pharaoh's mouth twitched, almost a smile. One of the bikers near the chip aisle coughed to cover a laugh. Holden's face went red. You are making a mistake, he said. Maybe, Ndiya said. But it's mine to make. If you believe courage like this should be seen, not buried, hit subscribe and comment. I stand with Ndiya. Stories like this only survive when people refuse to look away. Holden turned sharply toward his son. Get up, he snapped. We're leaving. Kester staggered forward. Brand stepped aside, letting him pass. Holden grabbed Kester by the arm and marched him toward the door. His polished shoes clicked fast and angry on the tile. At the door, he stopped and looked back at Pharaoh. This is not over, he said. Pharaoh nodded. No, he agreed. It's not. The judge pushed through the door and into the flashing lights. Officers rushed forward, surrounding him and Kester, guiding them toward the sedan. Inside the store, the bikers watched through the gaps in the barricades as the cars began to pull away, one by one, until only the chief's cruiser remained. The chief stepped out. He walked slowly to the door and knocked, polite, like he was visiting a neighbor. Pharaoh opened it. The chief looked past him at the mess. At the bikers. At Ndiya. She pressing charges? The chief asked. Pharaoh looked at her. She nodded. Yes, she said. The chief pulled a small notepad from his pocket. Then I'll need a statement, he said. Dawn came slow and orange. The parking lot was empty now except for Ndiya's old car and a line of motorcycles parked in neat rows near the pumps. The police were gone. The judge was gone. The red and blue lights had faded into memory. Inside the store, Ndiya sat on the floor behind the counter, back against the cigarette display, knees pulled up to her chest. The leather vest was draped over her shoulders like a blanket. Pharaoh sat beside her, boots stretched out in front of him, hands resting easy on his knees. Around them, the bikers moved quietly, putting shelves back, sweeping up broken glass, wiping soda stains from the tile. It was not their mess, but they cleaned it anyway. You didn't have to stay, Ndiya said. Her voice was hoarse from talking to the chief for 2 hours straight, giving her statement, describing every detail. Yeah, Pharaoh said. We did. She looked at him. Why? She asked. Pharaoh was quiet for a moment. He looked at the front windows where the sun was starting to creep in, turning the glass gold. Because 3 years ago, he said, you opened a door when everyone else kept theirs locked. You gave me water, coffee, treated me like I was human. That's rare. He glanced at her. People like you don't come around often, he said. When they do, we remember. Ndiya's throat tightened. She blinked hard, trying not to cry again, but the tears came anyway. She wiped them away with the back of her hand. I was so scared, she whispered. I know, Pharaoh said. I thought I was going to die. I know. She took a shaky breath. What happens now? She asked. Pharaoh stood up slowly, joints popping. He offered her his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet. Now, he said, you go home. You sleep. You call that civil rights group the chief mentioned. You let them help you. You don't do this alone. And you? She asked. We ride, he said. We got a long way to go before we stop. He reached into his vest and pulled out a small silver coin. It was old, worn smooth, with a skull etched into one side. He pressed it into her palm and closed her fingers around it. You keep that, he said. If anyone ever tries this again, you show them that. Tell them you got friends. Tell them those friends ride far, but they remember. She looked down at the coin, then up at him. Thank you, she said. Pharaoh nodded. Thank you, he said back. One by one, the bikers filed out. Boots on pavement. Engines roaring to life. The sound was deep and loud, a rolling thunder that shook the glass. Ndiya stood in the doorway and watched them go. 25 motorcycles in a long line, leather vests catching the first light of morning, riding east toward the highway. Pharaoh was the last to leave. He straddled his bike, helmet in hand, and looked back at her one more time. You're stronger than you think, he called over the rumble of the engine. She smiled, small but real. So are you, she called back. He grinned, slipped his helmet on, and kicked the bike into gear. And then he was gone, the roar of his engine fading into the distance until it was just the wind and the birds and the quiet hum of the store behind her. Ndiya stood there for a long time, the coin warm in her hand, the vest still heavy on her shoulders. Inside, the store was a mess. Shelves crooked, floors sticky, inventory scattered. But the doors were unlocked. The lights were on, and she was still standing. She walked back inside, set the coin on the counter next to her tip jar, and pulled out her phone. She dialed the number the chief had given her. A kind voice answered on the second ring. "Yes," Ndiya said, her voice steady. "I need help. I want to press charges." The voice on the other end asked her name. "Ndiya," she said. "My name is Ndiya." And for the first time that night, saying her name felt like winning. 3 months later, the case went to trial. Kester pleaded guilty to assault, unlawful restraint, and harassment. The video evidence was overwhelming. The judge, not Halden, a different judge from a different county, sentenced him to 2 years probation, community service, and a permanent mark on his record. Judge Halden resigned quietly. No scandal, no press conference, just a one-line statement citing personal reasons. The chief of police retired the same week. The story spread, shared, commented, liked. People in small towns across 3 states heard about the girl who said no and the bikers who stayed. Ndiya finished her night classes. She got her degree. She left the gas station for a better job, one with daylight hours, and a boss who learned her name on the first day. She kept the coin. She kept the vest. And every time someone asked her what happened that night, she told them the truth. Not all heroes wear badges. Some wear leather. Some pour coffee. Some just refuse to be silent. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Comment, "I believe in justice," so more people see what happens when ordinary people refuse to stay quiet. Stories like Ndiya's survive because people like you make sure they're heard. Thank you for listening. Thank you for standing with her. And thank you for believing that kindness, courage, and truth still matter. Ride safe, stand strong, and never forget, one cup of coffee can change the world. Thank you.